nice.
And how is the weather where you are?
It's very sunny, very warm. Uh,
Okay, I've just told the listeners here we have it overcast right now and mild. I won't call it too warm, so it's a bit different from us. And yes, listeners, I want to let you know this is the spiritual discussion program, and the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdrushin. And every week we have a new topic for discussion. The topic for tonight is Earnest Seekers Only. Earnest Seekers Only. You might be wondering how come we picked this topic. Well, it comes from the foreword of the Grail Message, which is titled For Your Guidance, which we read out at the end of each show. And so that is the Grail Message is directed to the earnest seekers only. So we thought, let's find out what are these earnest seekers. So that's the topic tonight, earnest seekers only. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number one, .com. If you scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abdrushin is the spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the readers again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abdrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you again, the topic for tonight is earnest seekers only. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. If you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. Gregory and listeners, we always like to look up the meaning of the words in the topic in the dictionary, so that we have some idea what the words mean, the concepts of them. So tonight the topic is earnest seekers only. So the first word there is earnest, and I looked that up in the dictionary, and I've got 2 meanings given there. The first one, it says resulting from or showing sincere and intense conviction. Example of that is an earnest student. So the meaning again is resulting from or showing sincere and intense conviction. Gregory, how good is this definition for this word?
It's quite helpful, but the ending with conviction makes it a bit unclear.
Okay. Actually, I was what you said. I think I should have looked up the meaning of the word conviction. So let me just do that quickly, so that we can just clear that one up as well. Conviction. So I'm just checking it now in the online. Conviction, it says a formal declaration by the verdict of a jury. I don't think that's what we're looking for, so let me go past that one. I'll jump that one. The next one, it says conviction. It says a firmly held belief or opinion. How good is this one, Gregory?
The actual word for conviction is not according to a firmly held belief, because firmly held belief is not conviction. Just like you can look outside and see, when you wake up, you see the sun rising from the east and setting in the west, and drawing the conclusion that the sun goes around the earth. It's just optics, what one has seen, but one hasn't investigated, so one cannot call that one conviction, even if you hold that view.
Okay, so let me just clarify a little bit more. Does it mean conviction is like a certainty, like a fact, or is it because when you say somebody says opinion, as you know, you can have different opinion, which means you can have different conviction. So is a conviction a certainty?
A conviction must have come through some very rigorous investigation, and that conviction is not basically without a reference. And now we know that the reference point or the reference framework is that of the laws of creation. So without that, many things which people call convictions are just personal opinion which have not been subjected to any test.
Right. Okay. So we are saying it should be based on the laws of creation. Okay, we will keep exploring that a bit more because I don't want to dwell on this continuously at the moment. So let us continue. So I said there were two meanings of the word earnest. The second meaning, it says serious and determined, especially too serious and unable to find your own actions funny. Oh, let me leave that out. Let's keep it simple. So Gregory, the word meaning of another meaning for the word earnest, serious and determined. How's that one?
Yes, the word determined is a good reflection.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Now I'm going to, so the topic tonight is earnest seekers only. So the second word there is seekers. Let us see what it says in the dictionary. What I found there is a person who is attempting to find or obtain something. And they give a few examples of that. A tireless seeker of justice. And another one is, he's really a principled seeker after truth. So, Gregory, the meaning is a person who's attempting to find or obtain something.
I think that's a very good reflection.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Now, the last word is only. And I was wondering whether I should bother to check that one, but I did in the end. So, only, it says in the dictionary, and no one or nothing more besides. Another word is solely. So let me repeat that. So the meaning of the word only, and no one or nothing more besides, and also solely. How good are these
well,
this meaning?
Solely is also a good reflection because it's, that word only is more of a filter to a particular thing. And so solely it's a good reflection.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So now we are saying earnest seekers only. So by immediately one wonders, okay, what are we seeking? And there are many. I'm not sure I should go list them all now, but yeah, let me give it out, and then we can go through it more one by one to be more thorough. So what are we seeking? So I have some examples of that. Meaning of life, truth, happiness, love, justice and peace, heaven, God. So Gregory, rather than going one by one on all of them now, just want to say in general, what are we seeking? Is there one thing we are seeking, or maybe more than one thing?
There are several things that the individual seeks.
Several. Okay. And now, maybe I should go into it, Gregory. When we are saying we are seeking more than one thing, is it, obviously we live on this earth, and then we have some inkling that there may be more than just earthly lives, or earthly, let's say, I was going to use the word necessities. There may be more than just earthly needs, let's say like that. So when you said there's more than one thing that we need or seek. So, okay. So Gregory, should we be seeking, let's say, since we are on the earth, should we be seeking firstly the earthly things?
It is only right to start from what an individual is used to, or what easily appear to the individual, and the maintenance of what that individual has been granted. So it's a starting point. Basically, an individual knows, okay, he has a physical body, so there's a need to maintain the physical body and all that is needed to maintain the physical body. So those things which are required for the maintenance of the physical body, one may refer to those as earthly, but there is more to it.
Exactly. I mean, in life we have we may not be able to value it in terms of earthly value. You know, obviously we have let's say a job where you earn some money, or you have some possessions which are worth some money. But then in life we have obviously the need, you could say, for happiness, which is, and love, which comes, let's say, through family, in a sense. Of course, not only family; it's not exclusive to that, but that's, I could say, where it starts. So let me get that right. So, Gregory, maybe from our previous shows, we always said there's a balance. We talk about balance. So, Gregory, are we trying to achieve a balance between earthly requirements and non-earthly, maybe I would say it that way, non-earthly needs?
It is through investigation, through reflections, many have now come to know that yes, there is the physical body, because each person on earth has this physical body, and in their intuitive sensing they realize that there is something beyond the physical body, and that which is beyond the physical body is able to communicate with the physical body or use the physical body as a tool, to use it as a tool so that it can accomplish many a thing in the earthly. Therefore, a seeking one must ensure there is a balance. For it is said that which is necessary for the physical body to operate optimally, grant it to it. And that which is necessary for the occupier or for the owner of the physical body, in this particular case, which is of spirit, what is necessary for it to function properly has to be granted to it also.
Thank you for that answer there, Gregory. What you're asking us to do is to, reflect on our life. We obviously have earthly needs. For sure, we need to take care of that. And then if you reflect, you will see, there's also non-earthly things, which may not be very clear from the beginning. But then they come out and you think, that is also important. And so you'll think, okay, I need to give time to that as well. And I say, it may not be 100% clear at this moment, but we will explore all that in our show tonight as well, because we are saying we are seeking, earnest seekers only. So we are, let's say, serious or determined to put the effort in for what we are seeking. Now, Gregory, the earthly needs, it seems automatically that the human beings put a lot of effort. Well, I can't say in every case, because we know some people it is not so important, or they have, let's say, things have gone wrong somewhere, and they've lost their way somehow, and they're earthly not able to, despite it is important for them, it hasn't let's say, worked out for them. So that, that puts them in whatever disease or lack of resources or whatever it happens to be, there's a shortcoming there. And that, has a big impact on the earthly side of their life. Now, Gregory, I'm wondering, we're talking in a very general way about human beings seeking, let's say, earthly things and non-earthly things. But each person is an individual. And yes, there are things in general that of course we need food, we need somewhere to stay, live, and so on. As I said, some people, they are successful in it and others are not so successful in it. And one wonders if is that meant to be the trying to see if that's so let me say it another way. Is the success in earthly life, Gregory, some sort of sign of a human's being's how can I say, abilities in being in sort of being successful?
When that expression successful is utilized, the question is, what does it really mean? Success in achieving the goals it has set for itself. The question is that how did it achieve this goal it has set for itself? If these goals have been achievable in earthly things, and in the process of achieving these goals, the human personality did not violate the intuitive sensing, say in destroying the environment or making it impossible for others to also achieve their goals, which are most likely to be noble. If you find that these conditions are not being violated, then it is laudable. Else, it is not.
Thank you for that, Gregory. So you have put this picture of, you could say, a moral way of behavior, in going for, in looking at, going for our goals. It's not all about us achieving our goal. There's the other fellow human beings also. They're also trying to achieve their goals. And if we do it at the expense, what we achieve at the expense of others, that could not be called success. It might look like success to you, but it's not. If you have harmed others, then that is not a real success, because somebody has had to suffer for what you have achieved. So there are some principles, you can say, we need to be following or be taking account of, when we go about whatever we are seeking. So there are some those principles. Now, that's probably what, Gregory, I want to talk about when we are saying seeking. Yes, of course, let's say when we start as a family, you're a child at the beginning, then you grow, you go to school, you grow up, learn, have education, and then start a job and so on. That's like, you could say, a standard path that human beings follow. But then, as you pointed out, Gregory, it's the way that you do it that has to be also taken into account. So, Gregory, is that, if I can call it education, should we be seeking, like, yes, there's, of course, you learn your maths or English or whatever, history and other things in school, but is there this, you should also be seeking, you could say, a moral education, is that also part of our, let's say, human development?
Many a time you have the scenario where there is the focus on earthly things because it is those earthly things or earthly laws are needed here. But you find that for an individual that wishes to live in peace with himself or herself or some others, there is a need to know the rules of the society, the earthly laws which have been put in place. Beyond that, each individual should be asking themselves the question, what is it or what happens hereafter? Is it that the earth is the only place where we live? Or we just came into existence and then we vanish once there's death? Because each individual knows that it was born, at least it has been told by the parents or others, and knows that it cannot be here forever. So definitely it's going to, the physical body which is being utilized is going to drop it. So the question is, what was it before I came in? I mean, before I was born? And what is it going to be when I have left? It is the I. So with that type of reasoning, you find that before long, the individual comes to that conclusion that there is more than this physical body that is utilizing. And therefore, it wishes to understand the rules, the laws that govern not only activities while it's here, but activities which are bound once it has left the physical body.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer. You've pointed out about these rules of living on this earth and rules which are governing life, not just the earthly life, which, let's say, again, may not be obvious or we are so in front of our eyes, let's say, it might not be directly clear to us, that yes, of course, we know from the earthly society that there are rules or laws that you're supposed to obey for this society to operate. And, we are taught that, let's say, from childhood, you can't do this, you can't do that, or you can do this. So that is there. But what you have pointed out, there are also rules governing this life, which I would say is something that we have to discover. We may not, unlikely that we will be taught about them, not like at school, for example. So we may be, Gregory, that's probably what we are seeking then. The laws, the rules governing this life. Now, when I think of that, Gregory, immediately I think again is what from school. You think of science. You hear about the laws of science. For example, the Newton's law, action and reaction. I've actually forgotten exactly what those Newton laws are now, but that's a simple one that I can remember there. Every action there's a reaction, and there's some other couple of laws I remember, but I can't say it specifically. So Gregory, you're talking about these rules which are for governing life. How are we meant to, you could say, discover them? Is it like a child when he learns to walk? Because there's no manual to show you how to walk. You just, keep trying, you keep falling, let's say you fall a few times, and then you learn to walk up like it's normal, and it takes time. So these laws that you're referring to about life, laws of life, let's call them, are we meant to discover them, how can I say, as we go through experiences, or is it, can be, I don't know, is there somewhere we can read about them or discover them?
When one considers very carefully, when say the discussion about laws, even from birth, the individual, although he may not be very conscious of it, knows that if it has not eaten, it will go hungry, and therefore it needs food to keep the physical body in order so that it can make progress. No school is necessary for that you have to learn and go to school to learn how to eat, or go to school to learn how to breathe. All these things, they are intrinsic. There is so very clear. Just as they are intrinsic, you will find many a person take these things for granted. The same thing with the farmer. If you do not plant your crops, there will be nothing to reap. The same thing happens that if you do not have a place or a house or somewhere to stay, when it rains, it will rain on you. So you find the individual with the challenges which abound is now compelled to reflect very calmly on the way forward, and basically is able to observe the neighbors and some other persons. Those early neighbors will be the parents or the guardians. So that is where these things start from. And before too long, it becomes certain that for you to be able to survive whilst here on earth, there are rules it has to obey. It doesn't mean that person has to go to school to learn these rules. For that which are learnt in school is only an accumulation and an extension of many a thing which has already happened in life, such that people don't need to go back and start afresh, but using an accumulation of experiences are able to filter and make use of that which has been helpful. So yes, schooling is important. However, there are many things which you don't have to learn in school. Nobody goes to school to learn to eat or to learn to breathe. These are intrinsic.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for this answer and explanation you're giving, about these, let's say, learning these rules and laws of life. It's not just, like you say, going to school and reading a book or something there to learn those rules. It's more, let's say, natural than that. Eating, you don't need to learn how to eat in terms of, like a child does. So it's all natural. So if we follow this process, there's a path being shown to us. Now I'm going to ask some more questions on this topic tonight, which is earnest seekers only, in a moment. Before I do that, I want to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message, by Uprushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic that we are discussing tonight, as I mentioned, is earnest seekers only. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which is earnest seekers only. And when we finish the show tonight at 8 p.m, you can listen to a recording of this show also on YouTube, and you type the same words in the search box, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which is earnest seekers only. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM /radio/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 there. Now, Gregory, we distinguish that we are, yes, there's the earthly things we seek, of course, food, a place where to stay, and also the non-earthly things, which you can say there's so many of them, like happiness. I mean, you can't say that there's no earthly happiness. Yes, there is, but these seem to transcend just the material earthly things. Yes, you can eat and you feel happy, something delicious that you've eaten, but then there's more than that. When you, let's say, you care for someone, there's love being given there, and that cannot be measured in a quantity, which the earthly things we measure all the time in a quantity. So those things are not measurable. Happiness, love, justice and peace. Now, Gregory, we talked also about these rules of life, or you could call them laws as well. Of course, again, we know there are earthly rules which run the society, and then we have these non-earthly rules. For example, well, I was mentioning about balance. That was balance between earthly and non-earthly, but it's in every aspect there's balance. If you're just looking again back to earthly things, if you just work, it will drain your energy, and you'll be quite shattered, and even if it's for a long time, you will have a burnout. So that's just based on earthly things. And then there's an impact on your, also you could say, non-earthly things. You could call it emotional life also. Now, so Gregory, I'm just thinking, you also said that there's not really a book as such, that, like you go to school to study earthly subjects, maths, English, whatever, history, and so on and so on. But then living, you could say, in happiness and balance, yes, in a way you do find books about them, but there's not like a concrete one formula that it must be done this way or it must be done in that way. There are many approaches to it. So what I wonder there, Gregory, let's say they are available in this world, you can call it spiritual teachings or techniques, whatever that exists out there. Let's say there's 100 of them. How do we, Gregory, can assess if, let's say, one approach is more, and maybe some approaches might be better for one person and not so much for another person. So, Gregory, how do we assess if out of these 100 approaches, which would be suitable for, let's say, as an individual, for one of us wants to examine something? How do we assess if something is meant for us?
Each individual, strictly speaking, is an individual. It has its own features. It has its own capabilities. It has its own abilities. It is the abilities the individual has that it must use to examine and weigh whatever comes across its path. There are some individuals who are very strong emotionally. Some are strong in body. Some have different blood radiations. And even if they get into certain scenarios, they don't catch illness or disease very easily. Some have very strong intuitive abilities. They're able to perceive things very quickly. There are some who have the ability to hear what is not audible to others. And there are some who have the abilities to perceive what others cannot see. So these are varied abilities. But one thing is very clear. The individual that needs to deal with the challenges that has accrued along the line must use his or her abilities to weigh, to examine. That means to investigate in order to come to a personal conclusion or a personal conviction. In that case, you may have that individual either reading a book and is able, through that medium, being able to gather experiences or experiences which have been put together and now able to make his own conclusions. There are some who are not capable of reading because they are blind. But even in that state, they are clairvoyant. It is what they have, it is the abilities the individual have that they have to use, not that which they don't have. So it varies from one person to the other.
Thanks a lot for that, Gregory. What you pointed to is, yes, no two people are the same. And of course, they see things differently. And as there's a famous saying, one man's food is another man's poison. So you can't put like one standard formula. Yes, of course, we all have to eat, that's true. But what we eat may be most suitable for one than the other. So then you can't put a hard and fast rule and say, oh, we must all eat apple, or this one must eat only banana. We must all eat banana. It may not work for some people. So you obviously, then of course the words you've used, weigh and examine, come in very aptly, because yes, you try something and see if that works for you. Another person, that one will not work for them, and they will have to try something different. So we learn like that, and then you will know your own answer rather than somebody else giving you an formula. Oh, you do this way. So, and then you are responsible for your path, and not saying, oh no, he told me this or she told me that, and now I followed it and it didn't work. So then you can say, no, yeah, I had to work out myself what it is, my path. So thank you for that. Now, Gregory, we've talked about laws, the earthly laws, where you could, let's say, if you do a crime, there's a punishment. Maybe you go to jail, for a certain number of years, depending what it is. Others where they give you some, let's say, I was going to use the word training or probation, where you give your time, and because maybe the crime is not as serious, and you can just come back, after that. So those are those earthly laws that we, are familiar with when we, let's say, break a law or something. Now, there's something you could say where you wonder, what if somebody escapes these earthly laws, either because of their cleverness, how to hide themselves so they don't get caught. And then one wonders, what about justice for this type of person? They're not getting dealt with by the human society. They seem to be escaping. And then you think, and they might even escape the whole life like this, nobody will catch them. And you're thinking that is not a justice, that's in fact injustice. So, Gregory, is there another system that sort of provides justice when you could say the earthly system has failed?
The earthly system is not perfect. However, the individual that is referred to in this particular case is only considering one part of it. That is the earthly part in which his physical body is involved. However, behind the physical body, that which activates the physical body, that is also subject to the appropriate laws, which appropriate laws are the laws of nature, since it came through nature, or generally the laws of creation, because nature is a part of creation. And that being the case, and more especially since the individual is in motion, was in motion here on earth, after departure, that which is non-earthly continues. That means it soars and severs itself away from the physical body, but is still subject to the laws, to the appropriate laws of creation. And in that particular scenario, that which he himself has sown through his deeds, his thoughts, and his intuitions, those things still persist. If that which he has done in these three different categories is in accordance with the laws of nature or of creation, that means it resonated with the laws of creation, that individual is pulled up higher through motion. If, however, it has violated these laws of creation, that individual, his activities did not resonate within the laws of creation, that individual will now have to sink to that level where it will have to experience the maturity of that which it has made to come into being. So in that case, there is perfect justice, the justice of that which a human personality has sown. That is what it has to reap. This there is no question about, even if many try to deny it. For the laws of nature or the laws of creation, they remain the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That means they are complete. It means they are perfect. There are no holes.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for that. So this seems that what you're saying is there's another, if I can use the word system, the laws of creation or nature, which are operating independent of human beings, always operating, and not only, like you say, on the earthly level, but above, let's say, beyond of the earthly level. So whether you die on this earth, after you die, they're still operating in the beyond. So it's a, let's say, very, I was going to use the word universal, rather than limited like the human laws, which are only on the earthly level, and they only apply when you're alive on this earth. But these ones, for the laws of creation, they're working outside, beyond just the earthly and the non-earthly. So they really are, and I think the other word you use, they are perfect. So that's why justice is assured there with those laws than the human system, which is not, unfortunately, able to handle that. And not only that, it's not only the physical, you could say, deeds are taken care of. There's also the non-physical, which are, you could say, our thoughts and our volition, our will, is also included in this system. So this is really something greater than what we think of the earth, is that, oh yes, this justice has been done or not been done, and we think when it's not been done, we are really unhappy. But here there's a system which is working independent of human beings, always operating, making sure that justice is done. And yet we are so unaware, because we're talking about earnest seekers only. What are we seeking? Well, we are seeking for justice, say, and then thinking that we human beings can provide this, in quotes, perfect justice. And yet there is already a system that exists which does that, but we are not aware. And as I say, many of us will not even think, oh, is there justice? And yet there is. So that's now, Gregory, what I wanted to say, yes, what you have said there, it makes sense, and you said just that the one question seems to arise. What you have said, in, let's say, in theory, it sounds really good, but how can we find out if it's really a reality? Do we have to sort of wait to die and pass into the beyond and see the consequence of this, things happening there to find out that this is real? Or can we know it on this earth, that this system, this natural system of justice, is operating Yes, can we see it on the earth as well?
The individual intuitively senses that which is ignoble. Like you mentioned, the individual that has done many things and tries to bypass the earthly laws and cheat. And if that individual were cheated, if you have the scenario where the individual stole from others, all he needed to do was to reverse it. If others stole from him, you have some individual that through the activities others jeopardized. Imagine if there's a swap, if there were changes in their positions. So it doesn't mean you have to pass on. That means you have a severance between the physical body and the soul before you sense it. Deep within each individual, the realization of that which is noble is always there. However, you have that some individuals have buried their intuitive sensing. And it is the degree in which they have buried their intuitive sensing, that is what you find around in most cases where people think they can get away with it. For they know quite well that if that which they have done to others were done to them, they themselves wouldn't like it. In fact, they themselves will take up arms, and yet they inflict such unnecessary pain on others. So, now, all individuals, with the exception of children who are just growing up, they sense this. Any matured personality who comes and said, "Oh, I did this because of this," those are just self-excuses. It never holds. Some come and they say, "Okay, for security reasons, I will have to wipe out civilizations. I will have to do this." All these things don't hold. They all know. They don't have to be told. For if they live in fear, then they themselves must reflect deeply what causes that fear. So every individual who is not a child, to a large extent, unless that individual is insane, that means that insanity is due to the physical body, some other people, some other earthbound personalities have taken over the physical body. That is what you call insanity, and they belong to lunatic asylum. You will find that a matured human personality is able to sense that there must be a balance. That which he does not want to be done to him, he himself should never attempt it on another.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer and the picture you've painted for us. You can see, like you said, reflect. There's a scenario, and you can reverse the scenario. You say, "Oh, this is happening. What is the purpose of what could be the effect of that?" Then you reverse the scenario back to yourself, and then you think, "Oh, what if it happened to me?" And then you'll say, "Oh, you won't stand for injustice." And then you see, "Oh, that means there is a system, that must be there." As you say, any person can really work that out if they just allow themselves to reflect. So thank you for that. Now I just want to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdrushin. And if you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is earnest seekers only. Earnest seekers only. You might be wondering, where did this topic come from? Well, it is in the foreword of the Grail Message, which is titled For Your Guidance. It says this is addressed for earnest seekers only. That's the Grail Message, that is. So we thought, okay, let us try to understand what is meant by this term, earnest seekers only. So that's the topic for tonight. If you have any questions or comments on it, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the homepage, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail Message, space the topic of show tonight, which is earnest seekers only. And after the show ends, which is 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to a recording of the show also on YouTube. Again, go to the website youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail Message, space earnest seekers only. And of course, you can also listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM /radio/ Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there. Now, Gregory, we mentioned that we human beings are not perfect, and no wonder the earthly system of justice is not also perfect. And then we also say there is the laws of nature, which also give us our justice, and that is perfect. And then one will wonder, okay, we human beings, we do, let's say, commit sins, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And then, let us say, in 100% justice, it would mean we need to pay or redeem for each sin. But then, Gregory, the question arises, okay, can we redeem all this sin because we continue to sin and we must pay for each one? So if that's the case, you can see, let's say, even whether intentionally or unintentionally, we will, as I say, make mistakes or do wrong things. And it seems we'll always be trapped or let's say at each in any scenario or any time, there will be a need to redeem something. So, and it seems like impossible to achieve this redemption, full redemption. So, how can we, Gregory? Is that is it possible to redeem everything or live perfectly? It seems very hard to believe that it is possible.
That is hard doesn't mean it's impossible. That's one part. Of course, it's possible to redeem. But what do we understand by redemption? What is our attitude to redemption? If someone is moving along a path and subsequently he finds that that path does not lead anywhere or is leading to an abyss, it is only right for the individual to retrace his or her steps or find another route to proceed on, such that it will not fall into a deep gorge or whatever path is following. So it is possible to redeem. What has not been considered is that there are three different categories, different but could be related. There are the errors, or in quotes, sins, in deeds, which are perceptible to the five senses. There are errors or sins which, say, one's thoughts can perceive, the way in which they think, and the plan, the volition which they hold within their thoughts. Could be an error, could be terrible, could be very sinful. And the other category is that of one's intuitions. These intuitions are volitions of the inner core of man, which one may call spirit. So these three different categories, must there be any redemption, one has to consider these three different categories. For in the sowing, these three categories are involved. There is the sowing, or the activities in deeds, the activities in one's thoughts, and the activities using one's intuition. These are that which binds the individual to a particular scenario. So, if you find that a sin has been committed in the earthly, in deeds, it may have its own equivalent, which is not earthly, in the nearest environment, in, say, in the ethereal, which exists. The same thing happens when one is considering one's intuitions. So, that being the case, the individual needs to redeem through its counter activities to that which it had initially instituted, or to that which initially it has activated. Many a time, these activities, they, like seeds, they are planted, they grow like seedlings, they mature, and then they bear fruits. Subsequently, these become the returns which are attached to the individual. such that he or she may taste of them, to now know what it is that they have planted in the past. But most times, many a person has forgotten how these came into existence, forgotten that they themselves contributed to it. Therefore, that which now accosts the individual, that individual, depending on his inner attitude, will now have to taste of it. If subsequently he starts reflecting and finds that there is something to be learned, that which needs to be learned is to know how to adjust himself and to also be helpful to others who face similar challenges. Then, in such a scenario, he is able to make quick progress because he holds a very good volition, knowing fully well, just as he himself or herself had challenges, so also were others. And just as he himself or herself is now reaping, so also are others. If, however, they hold that strong impression of one for all and all for one, then you will have in that particular scenario, there is the support for one another. That support, that well-being, that welfare, that is a manifestation of love. And since that well-being and welfare is not done in an arbitrary manner, you now have, it is only done in a lawful manner. That lawfulness in motion, that lawfulness which has already been in creation, in fact, which regulates creation, which regulates nature, made it possible for the fruits of his past deeds to be returned to him. Then you have that individual in his recognition, for the returns are only signs, are only fruits, which one may refer to as cognitive objects. However, in weighing and examining these cognitive objects, it's likely to come to recognition. With the recognition of what lies behind it, and with the right attitude, that thread is severed.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for again explaining how these laws of creation or nature sort of work through our, you could say, our actions in thoughts and, well, physical action as well, and also the intuition. So they're working on all these three levels, and they make sure, as Jesus would put it, what you sow you shall reap. So the system, that is how we can be assured that whatever we have put in, through our thoughts, through our words, the harvest comes. And yes, it might seem scary that, oh, what have I done? Maybe I have said some bad things or thought bad things against someone or people, and then there will be a consequence of that hitting me. But then, if we change our thinking and our inner will, I can say, the attitude is changed, and so the consequence will not be so as severe as it would have been if we hadn't changed our attitude. So these things, if we may not realize that, but that is part of this, you could say, this working of these laws. And so it doesn't look as bad as initially we might have feared, that, oh, I've done something and bad, and I must reap that. You can also reap good. So that reaping good can also bring the, how can I say, I don't want to say cancel, but it can have an effect, reduce the impact of the dark things that we have put out there. So thank you for that. Gregory, there's another aspect that, we may not have thought too deeply about, which is forgiveness. Forgiveness can come, let's say you have harmed someone, and then you say sorry for what you have done, and let's say promise to be a better person, and then that person who was the victim or who was harmed can say, okay, I forgive you for that. So that's, you could say that it's also something, you could say, helpful in our redemption. And yeah, so Gregory, that is another way that you can, how can I say, we have some hope of, redeeming our sin. And what I was going to ask there, Gregory, if there's a scenario where you do ask for forgiveness and the person doesn't forgive you, are you now, how can I say, stuck with that sin? Or can it still be redeemed?
No, you are not stuck with it. But one should ask oneself, when you said you asked for forgiveness, what does that really mean? So you have the scenario where people only talk about it, but it does not touch their intuitions. They only say it because it's the custom or it's the style. And then somebody says, I forgive you. One must consider these things very deeply. Only that which has a strong effect on the spirit, only that becomes of value or useful in creation. For the repentance of the individual helps to provide an environment such that when you have the reciprocal activities haven't matured to produce fruits, when they now return to the individual who initiated it, if they now find an environment in which that individual has refined himself or herself, then those activities, those returns are unable to pierce that environment of the individual, because the individual, through its earnest activities, has protected itself not only through repentance, but also in working for the welfare and the well-being of others other than itself. So such will be that when these returns come, they may slide away from his personal environment, or the impact, the effects of these returns may be greatly reduced reduced because you find when they have, or when they now strike the environment of the person, they don't go very far. Just like you have the atmosphere of the earth protecting the earth. In some cases, that individual, all it needs to do to purify itself is only to ensure it does something symbolic to ensure that it continues along that path in which his activities is of blessing to others and also to himself. So that is real redemption, not those who said, okay, sorry, and then they go on and they keep. So there's more to it than to just say sorry.
Thanks again, Gregory, for that explanation. Um, what you're pointing to is that whatever we say in forgiveness, for example, saying sorry, it has to be a genuine, deep sorry, otherwise the effect is not, let's say, negligible. So and what you're pointing to is that everything must, almost like we said the word perfect, it must be genuine, it must be heartfelt for that forgiveness. Otherwise, it cannot materialize, in reality. So that is really a system of perfection, which, again, people may not have thought. They can just say some words which are equating to forgiveness, and that's forgiveness. No, it's not like that. It must be deep, as you say, from the spirit. It must come from the spirit, and that is what is really the reality. So yes, you can say the word, but you may not mean it, and if you don't mean it, then it's not real. So the system cannot be fooled just because of somebody speaking words. So thank you for that. And that's, in a way, Gregory, that's makes me to the next point then, or question. How do, Gregory, we recognize if something is genuine? Somebody's saying forgiveness, really sorry, they mean it, or when it is not genuine, because the words are the same. You say the word, it's exactly the same. The only thing is, can you sense the intention behind these words? And, how can you know if it's genuine?
You must know that each individual is unique, and each individual has its way of detecting that which is genuine or not genuine through their intuitions. So if you have individuals who are highly intuitive, who can sense that which has arisen from one's spirit, then immediately they know. It all depends on the fineness of their blood radiations, where they are able to listen to these words, take it in, and it gets to the spirit, which spirit, due to its maturity, is now able to judge whether it is genuine or not. There are other individuals that are obtuse. They don't reflect at all. Their heads are down because they're just very dense. So in that case, such individuals will find it very difficult to differentiate that which is genuine from that which is not genuine. But for an individual that wishes to make progress for itself, it should make room, should make space, granting others, knowing fully well, just like himself, others have challenges, is now able to protect itself and also protect others. by not expecting from them more than what they themselves are capable of giving to others in that particular scenario. In that case, having made such preparation, you know how to adjust yourself.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer. What you're showing is that wherever you stand as a human being, whether you're highly intuitive or not so intuitive, there's progress to be made, in being able to develop the intuition. So that, because obviously, if you're talking about earnest seekers only, you must be striving to want to do, in quotes, to do the right thing, or to discover the right thing. If that's the case, then your abilities, and you have to use the abilities that you have. And as you said, some of us who are, let's say, sharp in those abilities, it'll be easier for them. But those who are not, it doesn't mean we can't get there. There is a way to progress. So yes, and as they say, maybe the word is practice make perfect. You have to keep practicing. So yes. Now, Gregory, another thing I was thinking about was, let's say, when we have a court case and there's somebody being accused, and then there's the prosecution and there's the defense, and let's say there's a jury, making a judgment about what is being said or presented in front of them, and let's say the judge tells you are supposed to judge on what you are presented. And then when you listen, you're supposed to look, they say, not look at the past history of that individual who's been accused, but what is being, because that could be prejudicial. Say the person has stolen, let's say he's been accused of robbery, and he's known to have done robberies in the past, and so now if you know that, you will say, oh, it must have done this as well, which is not which could be in this case wrong, let's say, just because of your, in quotes, prejudiced thinking, you will come to that. So what I wanted to ask there, Gregory, when we are assessing and listening to what is being presented, are we meant to listen, how can I say, in a neutral way, or what about, our emotion? When you hear the victim, for example, who has suffered, and you think, oh, this is very terrible, and this person who's been accused of it in the court has to be, given a severe punishment. So the emotion is there, and then at the same time we are being told to, they say follow the law, which is being not look at the past history and only what is presented. So Gregory, one wonders sometimes, is that really, how do you judge basically in this type of matter? Because when something is presented to you, you do react to what you're hearing, and maybe, as I say, you feel sorry for the victim, and you think, oh no, this person, must be, this is the person who's accused, and we must punish him for that. So, and then that could blind you from the reality. So my question is, in this type of scenario, how do we make a right assessment? With using the emotion, or just being neutral to everything that is put forward? Yeah.
The rules of the court have been put in place, and those rules only, they are restrictive. The rules are such that you have to focus on what they themselves have defined. The addition an individual may import into it is to become neutral, even from that point or from on the basis of what the system have put in place. For you cannot violate that which the system, no matter how narrow it is, has put in place. Else you yourself will be accused of being biased. It is different when the individual is permitted to use his or her conscience. That is not what the courts are talking about. The courts have put something in place and they said, okay, this is it. This framework must you rely on. And the best one can do is to be neutral, following the framework which has been put in place by the so-called justice systems. Even if deep within yourself you sense that there is some injustice going on, but you are not representing yourself. You are only representing the courts or the justice system. They want your input based on what they have defined there. So there's very little you can do, because you find that in the justice system, the lawyers are required, who have to formulate all sorts of rules, whether and the technicalities of their rules is what they are about, not the intuitive justice, which they lack anyway.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, again for clarifying, this, let's say, the earthly system, how it works, and its restrictive nature, and then this, how can I say, our inner spiritual sensing of justice, which is more sensitive and how can I say, even seeing things clearer. So that you can see there's a restriction in the earthly system. I mean, after all, do they know what somebody's thinking when something is happening? Nobody's saying that. They're just seeing the physical action. And that is what the judgment will be based on. I mean, they do say intention. What is the intention when somebody does a crime? The motive. They use the word motive for, let's say, murder or something like that. They'll ask, what is the motive? But even that is looking can be from a materialistic side rather than the inner, after all, you cannot see somebody's thoughts, you don't see it. So there is some limitations in these earthly ways, which are not taken into account by the earthly court system. So we just have to realize these limitations, and when we're making these decisions or judgments. So thank you for that. Now I want to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grail www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is earnest seekers only. Earnest seekers only. This is a quote from this foreword of the Grail Message, which is saying that the Grail Message is for earnest seekers only. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. There's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which is earnest seekers only. And at the end of this show, which we finish the program at 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to a recording of the show again on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box. It's the same words, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail Message, space the topic earnest seekers only. And of course, you can listen to recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM/radio/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 there again. Now, Gregory, we've been talking about earnest seekers only. We're talking about seeking justice. It was, that's the main thing we were thinking about, seeking balance in life, earthly needs, and then there's the spiritual, you could say, needs as well. Now, what I was wondering is, yes, people are looking, let's say, for the truth, for answers to their questions of life, or the meaning of life, as some people say. And then we know there are many spiritual sort of teachings or faiths out there, and then we find when you read them that sometimes it appears to be a contradiction in the words being said, and you don't know which one is where the contradiction is, which one is the correct one, which interpretation would be the correct one. Just by looking on that information alone, you wouldn't really be able to make sense. Then you read something else which from another teaching, and somehow it may contradict, or it may say something different to what you read in this one. So that suddenly you become confused or lost, and you really don't know, which one to go, take it as true or not true. So this is you could say, a big dilemma. I mean, you have said earlier, weigh and examine, but what about there's a knowledge required to weigh and examine, and when you read these teachings, which you can call it, let's say, knowledge in it, when there's not Gregory, there's a contradiction. This is the problem. When there's a contradiction, one is a bit lost. What can be done about this type of scenario, Gregory? I mean, I can give example just briefly. Somewhere in some teachings, they talk about life after death. In other teachings, they talk about reincarnation. So both of them have common that there's a life that carries on beyond this earthly life, but or maybe you return back to this earth. But there's not a way of how can I say, verifying, that one may not be, well, it could be considered contradiction because somebody's saying you're coming back. So how can, Gregory, we can find the right find the right answer in these matters?
Anytime you find that which is discussed where there exists lots of contradictions. Contradictions only mean inconsistencies. These things run along the lines of people's thoughts. And if these thoughts are not consistent with that which the individual holds, then the individual must seek further. It doesn't mean that one has to have read books. The simple examples that you wake up in the morning and you see the sun rising from the east and setting in the west, you make up your mind. Say, well, go and check it. I think that is it. And people come and write books about it. But subsequently, you will find some other quiet happenings which contradicts that which the individual has held for ages. And for one who is discerning, they need to weigh and they need to investigate. Because you will then find that there must be consistency. Only those who are awake in spirit, who always seek for more than what they themselves have experienced, who always seek and at the same time weighing and examining that which they have found in their investigations, only those will find. Much of what you quoted are basically doctrines. Doctrines which, when anybody looks at them carefully, they are filled with self-contradictions. However, that which is introduced in this forum has its basis on the laws of nature. For the individual in flesh and blood only came through the inflexible laws of nature. The individual is able to experience with the tool that is at its disposal, that is the physical body, only because in the length of time in which that individual exists here in flesh and blood, the basis for continuity is that of the laws of nature or the laws of creation. So these are starting points. An individual goes to bed, sleeps, is able, without leaving his or her bed, able to experience somewhere else. It is only fair that that individual should ask questions. How did this happen? You have some other case in which some individuals, they are clairaudient. Some others are clairvoyant. They're able to perceive of other happenings which many a person in flesh and blood is unable to perceive. And they bring their experiences to others so that others will examine and weigh. And in weighing and examining, they find it to be true. Then the question is, how did this happen? Did they have to go to school before they came to this realization? What teachings did they follow? So you will find that there are many pointers which speaks of the existence of the individual, that individual that has been severed from the physical body, of the existence or of a continuity of existence. It is now for the individual to examine, to weigh, not only the everyday experiences, but other experiences from other people. Only through this manner can that individual come to a better realization than that which they have held before. If, however, they are expecting, like in the case of science, someone needs to go out there and do the experimentation, then it becomes very difficult for them. But that which is referred to as science only considers that which is external. It touches only on the precipitates of real existence. For after all, that which one refers to as the physical body is more like a precipitate which exists between birth and death. And if it's considered as a precipitate, then there must be some other that activates it. That which activates it is referred to as spirit. But one can go a bit further and say that that which is referred to as spirit is energy. But these are observations the individuals must hold, investigate very carefully, weighing things in thoughts, in deeds, and above all, its intuitions. Very sadly, because many do not use their intuitions to weigh and examine, they only weigh deeds which are perceptible to them. Sometimes at best they weigh in thoughts. You find that that which is not utilized again and again, you find that it becomes ineffective or not as effective as those who really use it. Many will hold the view that, oh, they cannot see it, they cannot touch it. Of course, that is fair. It's a very fair point. But so also are one's thoughts. No one is able to hold their thoughts in their hands. No one is able to hold or to see their thoughts or to use any of the five senses to investigate their thoughts, to smell their thoughts. Yet, they don't talk about belief when it comes to thoughts. They are convinced that they have thoughts. Just as they are convinced that they have thoughts, so also they should strive to be convinced of their personal intuitions. For when they get to that stage, they are now personally convinced that they have their own intuitions. Then the path is open for deeper investigations, for deeper weighings. Just as they are able to do this investigation, the weighing and examining in deeds, because they are perceptible to the senses, so also can they weigh and examine in thoughts. And finally, through practice, again and again, weigh and examine using their intuitions. When an individual arrives at that point, many of the things which look impossible, which look mysterious, will vanish. Because without further reflection, many things that now accost them, they would already know what lies behind it. Whether that which has now had an impact on them is of benefit or is not of benefit. Whether it's of benefit in deeds or not, of benefit in thoughts or not, of benefit to their spirits or in their intuitions or not. The problem has always been the lack of personal activities using one's intuition. So that should be the starting point.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer. Again, the picture you're painting for us, you're showing us there's a process we have to, you could say, journey through in discovering, this or weighing and examining these questions of life. Yes. In fact, what I can see is we have become what you, let's say you read in books or whatever, it can be just absorbing somebody else's opinion, if I can say, or theory, which is not reality for us who are reading. It may be reality for that person who's written the book, but it's not for us. And for us to have this reality, we need to go through the experience, or at least we can look at what somebody has written and then try to make sense of that. If it's, and it might make sense, and it might also not make sense. That's also possible. And when it doesn't make sense, you have to start continuing the questioning, as you're saying, until you get the answer. So this is a journey, a process that we have to get through to get these answers. Another thing I'm seeing there is that you see things, how can I say, yes, some statement has been made, but there's a recognition of it for you to take it in. A consciousness is necessary. You have to, it's like seeing is believing, as they say. Until you see something, then only then. And this word believing, I know I have to be careful about it, because believing means you can just believe this one or you can believe that one. But I'm talking about seeing with your own eyes. That's what I really mean. Then it becomes believing in your believing based on your assessment, not somebody else's, words. So it's a personal journey, actually, of discovery. Yes, somebody can give their views? Of course they can, or science can propose something, but we can't just accept those things just like that. We have to, it's not satisfying until you yourself have come to that realization. So this is the process. Now, we've come to the end of the show tonight, listeners. Hope you've enjoyed the discussion, which was the topic of earnest seekers only. And this words, or this topic was chosen from the words in the Grail, the foreword of the Grail Message, which is titled "For Your Guidance." So I now wish to just read that forward for you, as I do in each show, towards the end of each show, and hope let's so it's I hope it will all fall into place. Now, for your guidance, the bandage falls. Belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I am addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As with the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aid for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you are truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Abdushin. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing listeners a beautiful week ahead.
Same from me, listeners. Have a beautiful week ahead. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time, with another topic. We hope you can join us then. Take care.